They don't make them as they used to.
Oh, gather round me, comrades, and listen while I speak of a war, a war, a war where hell is 6 feet deep. Along the shore, the cannons roar. Oh, how can a soldier sleep? The going's slow on Anzio, and hell is 6 feet deep. Praise be to God for this captured sod that rich with blood does seep. With yours and mine like butchered swines, and hell is 6 feet deep. That death awaits, there's no debate, no triumph will we reap. The crosses grow on Anzio, where hell is 6 feet deep.
Before we start, I have to go to the regular shilling. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do everything. Now, let's do it. Company of Heroes 3 is pretty much Company of Heroes 2, which makes me wonder why did they make the third one. This is a question I have when it comes to Blood Bowl 3 as well. Another similarity it has with Blood Bowl is that the tutorial has a bug in it, which is strange that it happened twice with two games that are the third installments in the respective franchises. I guess that speaks more of the state of the video game industry than the games themselves. But let's not forget, they are the products of the problem, so we must not ignore that. Now that I've rambled enough, I think it's time to treat this as a proper review. As mentioned before, it's Company of Heroes 2 in gameplay, but somehow worse. I'll talk about the campaigns because that's what I usually enjoy in RTS games. And this one has two of them, an Italian one and a North African one. First of all, let's begin with the Italian campaign. In the Italian campaign, your job is to make your three allies happy and march through Rome. Those three allies consist of an American general, a British one, and an Italian partisan. Rather than go from mission to mission like a good RTS, you're thrown into an overworld map with towns and cities for you to conquer. It's like it's trying to be a civilization game, or better yet, it wants to be a total war game. And well, it's pretty mediocre at that, I would say. There's only one enemy and only one way of winning. But if we ignore this, we find that the game has a mechanic where optional quests pop up for your allies. A bunch of them. And to make matters worse, they're all timed, so you better do them before they run out. Remember when I said this game tries to be Total War? Well, instead of a general or lord, you have a unit that represents an initial fighting force that you can move on the map and do missions and quests with. This doesn't work with the timed quests because at the start of the game, you only have one, and it'll take some time before you get another one, which will make many of the quests and optional missions kind of impossible to get. The game also has an auto-resolve button, which is very needed seeing how many enemy units are on the map and how all of them just can't wait to attack you. But let's go back to the quests. Doing those quests will usually give you either a city on the map, some units in the case of some quests, and resources. I really recommend doing those where you get extra units. And more importantly, when you do a quest, you will get loyalty with your three allies, which will benefit you with upgrades and extra troops. Which is good, but they also play another important role, their loyalty system, because your allies will join you in the final battle of the campaign. Unfortunately, when I did that, I had two allies maxed out, but only one of them came to my help. My advice is to focus on one that looks interesting to you and keep the others at a decent level. Now let's touch on the story of the Italian campaign and, well, the history of it all a little bit. After the missions that make the story go forward, because there's only a few of them, You will get cinematics of an American soldier writing to his girl back home and telling her of what they are doing and basically his state of mind. This is told through still images, in a way no different than some of my videos. Still, it's a pretty decent touch into the life and thoughts of a soldier during the invasion of Italy. There are some nice historical parallels that the campaign makes, but they are kind of vague and small. You see, the American and the British general are very much at each other's throats, in a way mirroring the relation between Winston Churchill and the American generals, in regards to the invasion of Italy. Churchill thought it was a good idea, citing that the population of Italy started to lose faith in the war, and that would make supplying the Soviets more easy. He even considered Italy to be the soft belly of the Axis, while a general named Mark C thought it to be the tough gut of the Axis. General George C. Marshall thought that the invasion of Italy would just be an impediment, that it would hold up Operation Overlord. But while the two historical figures disagreed about how much of a good idea it is, well, the two generals in the invasion of Italy disagree on more tactical operations than anything else. Of course, we can't ignore a pretty important historical question, and many might ask that have a, let's say, not that in-depth understanding of World War II history. If the Allies are invading Italy, why are the troops be fighting German? And this is something the game doesn't really touch that much on, and I don't think it does at all. So strap in for a little history lesson. After the coup made against Mussolini and his removal from power, the following government of Italy wasn't all that willing to fight Adolf's wars anymore, and tried to negotiate in secret an alliance, or they tried to negotiate to join with the Allies. Which was interesting because that would have a really important effect on the German troops who were at one point fighting on friendly territory, or wasn't within a friendly nation, and then they found themselves in enemy territory. But unfortunately that didn't work. In real life, it would have worked, but if it wasn't for the sheer resilience of the German troops and the Italian fascists. They were so resilient that they continued to fight even after the fall of Berlin in April of 1945. The game doesn't touch on why we are fighting only Germans, and for what it's worth, there is no sign of Italian fascists to fight. And I think this is really detrimental to the story and the historical accuracy of the game, especially to make no mention of why we are fighting more Germans after Germans. The lack of Italians I could understand in the context that one of your allies is an Italian partisan, and they are trying to paint the Italian people as relatively good, fighting against the evil Germans. But this closes more doors than it opens. Note that what I'm talking about is for this to be part of the main story, not hidden somewhere in some optional quest that just makes a brief reference that there are still Italians on the side of the Germans. A thing that I can not confirm or deny because I haven't done all the quests. For better or worse, the Italian campaign is just meh. It's doable, it's I guess enjoyable for a portion until it gets too old, but it's meh. Remember, I said this game also has two campaigns, and it also has one in North Africa. And now we'll be looking at it. The story of the North African campaign is about the Jewish partisans. You might say, nice, a campaign about a lesser part of the World War. But there is a catch. The cutscenes that play between missions are about the Jewish partisans and what is happening to the Jewish communities in North Africa. But the missions are about Romulo and the Africa Corps. You see where I'm going with this? While the cutscenes try to paint this idea of, both sides are devastating our community, the gameplay gives us panzers to play with. It doesn't make that much sense. If you want to let people play as the Germans in the North Africa theater, at least do the same you did with the Italian campaign. Or if you want to portray the Jewish partisans, let us play as them. But no. In the end, we get a mix that makes no sense, like combining cola and Fanta together and expecting an amazing result. This is just historical spinelessness. God forbid we show that the Allies also did bad things, or that we show the German soldiers were also humans that had their own doubts about the war and the reasons they were fighting for. Or, like the Italian campaign, that they had a loved one home they wanted to see. There is no place for nuance. There's only place for lazy attempts at telling a story while not putting in that much work into thinking about it. Just consume. This easily applies to the Italian campaign, but while there is at least a glimmer of storytelling at play there, here is just open for all to see. Cowardice aside, the mission-to-mission transition of the African campaign is more enjoyable than the open world of the Italian one, again in my opinion. And the missions themselves I have found to be more fun than the Italian one. Hell, in one of them you get to use a truck to either scavenge tanks for resources or repair them and add them to your army. This whole deal with the Italian and North African campaign leads me to believe that the two campaigns were worked on by two different people/teams, giving us a mediocre game at the end of the day. I guess I should also touch on some elements that I liked. I guess I liked being able to play the invasion of Italy, and if in a little ahistorical way, and also play as Rommel and his Panzer division. Both of those are interesting parts of the Second World War that don't get touched upon as much as the invasion of Normandy. The mission variety is also good, but of course mainly the North African campaign, sometimes the Italian one. Those are nice, and they're a very good break from the constant build and capture nature of Company of Heroes. When all that said, I think it's best to wrap this up. Company of Heroes 3 feels like a gun that was loaded, but Relic was too afraid to take the shot, leaving us with a game that might as well have been a forgotten expansion pack for Company of Heroes 2. With mechanics that could have worked if they were more fleshed out and done better, and two campaigns of which only one is decent and the other one is spineless, but the gameplay is fun, I guess. Overall, I would say this game is worth buying if you can get it at a good discount, either through a Steam sale or G2A. But only that. Full price doesn't feel like it. Not to be. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.
Sorry, keep moving, boys. I'm on the way.